The Knights Kingdom of 2006 feels like an altogether different theme than the one that came before it. Gone are the days of the Jelly Bean Knights and the bold and colorful castles. The summer 2006 playset line arguably gave fans what they had been asking for: a grittier, more realistic, gray castle theme, much like the ones that had come before it. If you tuned into my action figure video from a couple weeks ago, you might recall that even the cast of characters has changed this time around. But if there's one thing that's still the same, it's that Vladik is still up to no good. And our new heroes find themselves facing up against him in one final battle. Much like in the previous waves of Knights Kingdom, the sets actually take us nicely through the story. And that all begins with the attack of the Rogue Knight battleship. At $20 and 152 pieces, the Rogue Knight battleship would have been the smallest of the 4 sets released in the summer of 2006. But don't let the small numbers fool you, because I think this is one of the most creative and memorable sets of the lineup. First, allow me to introduce you to the minifigure scale versions of these characters. Up first, we have the noble knight Sir Kentis. I think the figure has been translated reasonably well from his action figure counterpart here. It's fun to see the Danju helmet recolored here in the speckled dark bluish gray silver, a color that is exclusive to the Knights Kingdom theme. We saw it a few times in the action figures as well. His mace is really cleverly designed with a simple 4-long bar and a small gear at the top. The figure uses Jaco's face print, but does get a brand new armor print, and it's a print that's also shared with Sir Adric, who we'll see here in a bit. The other familiar face included in this set is Dracus. Dracus has not been translated nearly as well from his action figure, and that's mostly because he's lost his most important color, which is the Keat Orange, Flame Yellowish Orange, or Bright Light Orange. Instead, for some reason, LEGO has opted to give him yellow arms and, most unfortunately, yellow legs. So it does appear like Dracus is running around without his pants on. The classic Shadow Knight helmet works decently well here, and then he gets a reprint of one of the Knights Kingdom octagonal shields, and I really like the look of that with this dragon on there. As for the third figure, this is our first generic Rogue Knight. The Rogue Knights appear to be a mercenary faction that Vladik has hired to help him conquer the Mistlands Tower. This figure is actually quite great because he gets 2 pieces of the black speckle silver armor, the Shadow Knight armor, and then the standard chest plate as well. But much like Dracus, he's going into battle without any pants on. In the story, Vladik is trying to get to the Lost Tower to unlock its magical powers for his own nefarious purposes, and it's up to the Knights of Morcia to defend it and prevent that from happening. So as we go through the sets, you're seeing these encounters as they get closer and closer to the tower. And this is the first one, as Vladik's crew comes sailing in on their battleship, and Sir Kentis is left here at a small outpost to try to slow them down. The outpost here is constructed with your classic Knights Kingdom building techniques. Big, bulky pieces, like the tower elements here and a lerp at the bottom. It all comes together to create something fairly convincing. You've even got a nice dock at the base, so you could simulate a boarding and actually having a battle here at the tower, which is cool. There is naturally a catapult. Knights Kingdom is all about catapults. Remember in the last wave back in 2005, they were actually strapping catapults to horses. They'll put a catapult on anything. This one fires off these 2x2 rounded bricks, nothing special, and they do tend to get stuck to the catapult, which is a bit unfortunate. As is pretty standard for Knights Kingdom, and if you've watched any of these videos before, you'll know exactly what's in the interior already, and that's absolutely nothing. What's really stealing the spotlight here, though, is the battleship, which is this junk-based craft, which really cleverly uses dragon wings for the sail. This is a pretty well-loved piece, very common for this era. It had a number of appearances in the Vikings line, and we're still seeing recolors of this element even to today. This particular dragon wing thankfully opts for the proper bright light orange instead of just regular old yellow, and pairs it with the pearl light gray, which is a really nice look and perfect for the Rogue Knights. And this specific recolor of the wing is exclusive to the set. Some of you might have already picked up on this already, but this set is indeed based off of one of the most iconic LEGO ships of all time, the Sea Serpent from the classic Castle line. You've even got the same turret tops on the front and the back of the vessel, just like the original set. Another fun addition here is this battering ram of sorts that's at the front of the vessel. This is a recolor of the villain shoulder armor that we saw in the action figures. It's recolored here in pearl dark gray, and that's a recolor that only shows up in one more set, which we'll be taking a look at before the end of this video. Very surprisingly, one of the rarest elements in this set is this 2x2 light bluish gray slope, which is an exclusive recolor for some reason to the Rogue Knight battleship. That mold still is indeed in production today. I have no idea how they haven't managed to recolor it ever since this set. So yeah, you can expect to pay a couple bucks for that piece if you want it for some reason. In typical Knights Kingdom fashion, you'll also find another catapult on this boat as well, shooting off some 1x1 round cylinders, and then there's some of these large oars on the back. And since we've talked about so many fun parts already, I might as well mention the light brown bionicle joints here that hold the sails in place. That does allow them to be moved any which way you like, which can give the ship a dramatically different look very easily, and I do appreciate that. The base of the actual junk itself is kind of chaotic with bricks and plates everywhere. I think that's just a designer trying to stretch his parts budget as far as he possibly could. The catapults are always great fun. The minifigures, with the exception of the unfortunate yellow legs and arms, really do have some great elements to them and otherwise look fantastic. And you gotta love all the rare parts on display here too. And while you wouldn't see it in the instruction booklet, the back of the box actually features an alternate build for this model. As it's depicted in the comics at least, the next stage of the journey actually takes us right to the foot of the Mistlands Tower. Here, the Gargoyle Bridge serves as the entrance to the castle. The set has about 100 pieces more than the battleship and would have cost $30 back in the day. Let's go ahead and take a look at the minifigures right away again. This time around, we have Sir Adric. And like Sir Kentis, I think he does a good job of replicating his action figure look. His helmet is actually a recolor of Santas's, which only furthers my belief that this is like Santas's kid or something. And here you can see that that chestplate print is indeed identical to Sir Kentis's. And then we get the other big bad guy of the season, and that's Karzan, the master of traps. He's decked out in a much more suitable sand blue color rather than yellow, which is nice. And he's got the same weapon that Sir Kentis had in the last set. Here you can see one of those big oval shields with his snake logo on it, and he's got a chest plate very similar to the one that Dracus had, but with some bronze copper printing on it instead. And that coloration does actually continue up into his helmet, where he's got a speckled black copper helmet. Another very rare Knights Kingdom exclusive color, and one that I'm really quite fond of. He's reusing a Viking's face, as Vikings was indeed being released alongside Knights Kingdom at this time. And perhaps the most interesting minifigure here is the random Rogue Knight. This Rogue Knight is nicely colored to match Karzan. This is like maybe his personal bodyguard or something, but he's actually got an exclusive piece here, and that's his chest plate, which is done up in that speckle black copper color. And this is the only set and the only minifigure you'll ever find that element. Paired here with the matching helmet, it really is quite perfect. It's a simple figure, but he looks great. And it's such a pity we would never see that chest plate appear anywhere else. In the story, it's up to the Knights of Morcia to defend this bridge from Vladic's forces, who are trailing just a bit behind. Sir Kentis, Sir Adric, and King Jaco get to the bridge first and are going to do their best to prevent Vladic from crossing. Karzan, master of machinery and traps, has brought along his personal battering ram, and you can tell it's his because it's bearing his face on the front. Yeah, that element here is actually the action figure helmet, used here in one of the minifigure scale playsets. We've seen that a few times now in both the previous waves, whether it be the shields used in the Grand Tournament or the giant swords used outside of Vladic's Dark Fortress. It's kind of cool to give those pieces a second life in a setting that does make at least a little bit of sense, like this one. There is a crank that can be used to extend the ram forward, but it's easier to probably just manipulate that yourself. This has to be the only instance, though do let me know if you can think of anything else, where LEGO has utilized that 6 brick tall tower window like this, actually extending an element through that. It's really bizarre, but once again quite creative, and I respect it a lot. It's centered nicely with these 2x2 sand blue tower turret pieces, another Knights Kingdom exclusive element that we'll only see one more time in the next set. The vehicle is indeed narrow enough to actually climb and roll across the bridge, which is great attention to detail. The name of the set and the comics give a lot of attention to the gargoyles stationed on either side of the bridge here. In LEGO form, they're far less intimidating than you would be led to believe if you had only seen the comics before. This is, of course, the Fenris wolf head recolored in pearl silver here. It's a really great element, and you can move it up and down a little bit to get some biting action out of these guys, but they're not nearly as big as they should be. Holding the tower up is a really interesting little ugly rock piece. That's the 4-wide variant, and this time it's colored with a mixture of dark green and pearl light gray at the top. We saw this piece used before as ice in Alpha Team Mission Deep Freeze, and the same exact color combination actually showed up only once outside of Knights Kingdom in Fantasy Era with the Skeleton Ship attack set. Making the terrain pearl light gray is a very bold choice and definitely limits what you can do when it comes to custom creations, but I'm glad that it stands out from the light gray that is used everywhere else in this series. But I do wonder how they came to the decision to use this color combo over, I don't know, dark gray or anything else. Moving along the bridge, it's time for Sir Adric to lay some traps rather than Karzan. You'll see this mechanism here, which theoretically should collapse the whole bridge, but it usually takes a bit of pushing and prodding. Maybe that would have worked a bit more smoothly when the parts were a lot fresher, but these days, just needs a little bit of help. Maybe the weight of this thing would push it down though. And the idea is that Sir Adric could send the whole of Vladic's army tumbling into the river below. If that didn't do the trick though, there's also this very conspicuous axe assembly at the top, which, you guessed it, can chop anyone in half very easily. It also serves to crack open the doors, which is a very interesting sort of mechanism, assuming that the designer of the bridge also installed this trap, and not Sir Adric himself. I mean, I don't know where he's pulling these giant axes from. Though when it comes to the part itself, this of course is the same axe that was introduced with the action figure of Sir Adric. A small but very significant in my mind inclusion here is the ramp out the back. I feel like I've seen many versions of this layout before that don't include a way for figures to get down once they've gotten to the top. Temple of Mount Everest is a good example of that, which feels very similar to this layout. And even the Boulder Ambush set from Knights Kingdom Wave 1 didn't have something out the back. In fact, on the back of the boxes for these sets, you'll actually see that you're intended to connect the other two sets in this line with these ramps to make one continuous flow from one set to the other. LEGO's attempt to show you that you can't just have one set, you need all three. Classic LEGO behavior. The structure itself, especially when it comes to looks though, is really not all that noteworthy, much like the little castle side build that we saw in the battleship attack set. The pearl gold accents are a nice touch, but this just doesn't have the same flair as something like, you know, the Citadel of Orlon or the Castle of Morcia. The toned down colors was probably meant to appeal to the noisy but very much in the minority adult fans of Castle who weren't getting what they wanted out of the colorful and vibrant and exciting world of Knights Kingdom that came out in 2004 and 2005. Unfortunately, I don't think this compromise appealed to much of anybody in the end. The sets remained far too simple for adult builders and just not colorful or interesting enough for the younger builders. But hey, if there's one thing that Knights Kingdom continues to do really well, it's give you a lot of castle for your buck. This is a big, bulky model, even if it is just a 250-piece set. And just like that, we find ourselves at the Mistlands Tower, the largest set of the wave, clocking in at 431 pieces and retailing for $50 back in 2006. Here you'll find 6 minifigures, a few of them are familiar faces, including Sir Adric and Karzan, who we just saw in the last set, and then we also finally get King Jaco. Jaco has indeed taken Matthias's place on the throne and leads his humble army of 2 knights into battle against Lord Vladik. The new figure has a lot in common with King Matthias. In fact, Jaco has even stolen his face print as well as his crown. I'm really glad to see him get a cape here though. I love a good old caped minifigure. The other really exciting figure, of course, is Lord Vladik in his final form here. I love how much he looks like his action figure, though I would have loved to have seen his crazy specialized sword in minifigure form too. Beyond the cape and some printing changes, Vladik isn't really too revolutionary when compared to the previous versions of the figure, but he still can be quite pricey to pick up on the aftermarket. The strangest and most disappointing figure, though, has got to be the blacksmith, who has no love whatsoever put into his design. He's got a set of torso and legs completely composed of unprinted reddish brown, down to the arms, the hands, and the hips. It's a really goofy design that I think literally anything, a different set of pants, would have elevated him at least slightly. He does get the coolest accessory in the set though, which is the Shield of Ages itself. A shield that should look pretty familiar to you as it has been used in the Knights Kingdom logo since day one. In the set, Jaco also gets a horse to ride, though this time it doesn't have a catapult, surprisingly, and the baddies get their own portable catapult. This is the first time we actually are seeing stickers in Knights Kingdom, which is kind of crazy. So you do get stickered flags, interestingly enough, rather than prints here. Maybe that has something to do with the budget cuts to Knights Kingdom, I'm not really sure. The catapult is really nice, it's very similar to one that we saw in the last wave of Knights Kingdom sets, hurling this very terrifying spinning projectile through the air. After sending much of the Rogue Knight army crashing into the river at the Gargoyle Bridge, King Jaco, Sir Adric, and Sir Kentis do indeed reach the Mistlan's tower first. And here at the tower is where they meet the blacksmith. While Sir Kentis and Sir Adric hold down the fort, Jaco presents the broken pieces of the Shield of Ages to the blacksmith to repair. Recall that Vladik unearthed all these pieces and used them, or attempted to use them, to construct the Vladmesk at his Dark Fortress in the 2005 line of sets. It's Jaco's hope that, with the reconstructed Shield of Ages, they can finally defeat Vladik once and for all. So let's take a look at what's going on inside this castle, the flagship set of the wave. It's tall, I would imagine the tallest LEGO Knights Kingdom set released, maybe behind the Castle of Morcia. You've got this front courtyard, which is nicely decorated with these locking teeth. I do really like that effect. There's a really actually quite nice level of detail here, using less of the big specialized castle wall elements we've come to expect from the theme. Dotted around, you'll also see those same little lerps with the dark green and the pearl light gray. And it really helps the castle kind of flow naturally out of the ground and blend it down into the grass below, which I think is really nice. On this side of the castle, you'll find a bit of a macabre prison. There's a skeleton floating above. It's not entirely clear if he was hung or what, but pulling this little stopper here will send him right back into the dungeon. This can also serve as a trap for the enemies. You can raise these bars up top, and if they are stepped on, you could send more minifigures hurtling into the dungeon below. And all of this can be accessed through one of these lovely little side doors, a piece that showed up a lot in the earliest Harry Potter sets. Above that, you better believe it, there's another catapult, and this one fires off trans neon orange 2x2 round bricks. There's nothing, unfortunately, though unsurprisingly, in the basement. It's just a bunch of empty space, but if there's some carts from the earlier Knights Kingdom sets, they could probably be stashed in here too. The one thing that is on the ground floor is one of these very unusual standing rat molds. It only appeared in a handful of sets during this era, 5 altogether in 2 colors, light bluish gray and dark bluish gray. The other set that we covered that had it was the Shrieking Shack. This was Peter Pettigrew. And it is kind of goofy and totally unexpected, especially considering LEGO had a perfectly serviceable rat mold at the time. Moving up to the next floor though, this is the blacksmithery. We've got, of course, a forge just filled with some transparent cylinders in there to represent fire, and there's actually a ton of weapons included in this set. Lots of extra swords, axes, crossbows even on top, so your figures could totally be kitted out, which is really, really nice. There's an additional trap here too. If you get a minifigure standing here on the ledge, you can send them hurling into the courtyard below with one of those lovely spiked ball pieces that we saw in the action figure line. Well, would you look at that? Knights Kingdom is making an effort to do some interior details here. On the floor above that, you've got a treasure chest filled with your classic collection of 4 chrome gold coins, which are always great to see. And there's a little cobweb here with a spider for some extra detail. The next floor, it leaves a little bit to be desired, but at least you've got those crossbows that I pointed out earlier, and the suggestion of a route to the top with this little ladder here. The top is really quite nice. The silhouette of this tower is really, really cool, and the top is what sells it the most, with these really great Vikings Bionicle-esque dragon heads. Like I mentioned earlier, Wave 3 of Knight's Kingdom was being released alongside Vikings, so 2 castle themes at the same time. Pretty awesome. So you see a lot of back and forth and trading of parts. Vikings made use of the Knight's Kingdom longsword, and then you get some of the Vikings pieces in the sets like the gargoyles, and then these dragon heads here, which is a recolor that was also used in the Ofnir dragon, which was released in 2006 as well. The highlight here, though, is the highly unusual chrome blue 4x4 faceted dome piece. This element was originally made for insectoids as a crazy bug eye, and it's just mesmerizing to look at, especially in chrome or in the transparent colors like they did for insectoids. The chrome blue is indeed exclusive to this set and can be hard to replace, and as much as I'd love to replace my very, very scuffed version, I wouldn't be surprised if this part ran for at least $5, if not 10 or more. It feels appropriately magical and special, like it's a worthy artifact to base the entire conflict of this wave around. There really is nothing else like it. In the chaos of the battle, Vladik does manage to get to the top of the tower and smash the magic orb. But with the Shield of Ages reforged and the power of friendship, King Jacob, Sir Adric, and Sir Kentis trap Vladik in the magic orb, sealing him and defeating him forever. The rules of the magic of this world aren't exactly clear, unsurprisingly, but I think it seems like a fitting end to Vladik, destroyed by the very object that he wanted to steal in the first place. How poetic. There's some good features in this set, all things said. We've got some traps, we've got some cool parts, we've got an interesting layout, a really nice tower with, go figure, interior actually in it, and the abundance of weapons in this set is really quite the treat. It is surprising how few figures, though, we get in this big flagship set. Missing out on Sir Kentis and Drakus does feel like a bit of a crime, and surely a handful of extra rogue knights would have been nice too. But we'll see soon enough that LEGO had other plans for an army builder of a set. One thing I really need to highlight, though, is the box for this, which I picked up in Oregon a couple of years ago. Barely fit this in my suitcase as I tore apart the box. And this is really cool because on the back there's some really, really special stuff. So how awesome is this? In the bottom here, you can actually see all the weaponry and shields and accessories laid out like this. All the cool parts that the kids like myself would have been really, really excited for. And moving over here, this is that image I talked about earlier of all the sets connecting together with the gargoyle bridge here in the middle. I wish LEGO had leaned more into having purposeful connections between these sets, but use your imagination a little bit and you can figure something out. But the real highlight here is, once again, an alternate build featured here and only here on the back of the box, not in the instructions. It's just so awesome. I miss alternate builds so very dearly, and I'm glad LEGO is still doing them, even in a subtle way, here on the back of the boxes for Wave 3 of Knight's Kingdom. Yeah, I love all the imagery around. It's a really, really, really nice box. Great stuff. It's also huge. They're big pieces. They don't make them like they used to. And I've also got the instruction booklet here too, which has a really nice spread of the entire comic that tells the entire story of Wave 3. In a whole wave of sets that feels like an anomaly for Knight's Kingdom, Battle at the Pass stands out even further. This would be the last Knight's Kingdom set ever released, and it was one of those limited edition retail exclusive type sets, making it very, very difficult to get your hands on. The set has 381 pieces and would have cost $40 back in 2006. And it's not entirely clear where, if at all, this fits into the story, as the settings and even some of the minifigures that make this place up are never mentioned in any of the outside material. I suppose I forgot to mention it, but unfortunately there were no trading cards produced for Wave 3 of Knight's Kingdom. If the sets had some, and there is evidence to suggest that some of the sets did indeed have the trading cards, they were just reissues of the 2005 ones. This set depicts a truly epic battle between the Knights of Morcia and the Rogue Knights. After all, I suppose, at the Mistlin's Tower, Jaco, Kentis, and Adric defeated Lord Vladik, but they still had an entire army that they had to contend with. And maybe that's what's going on here. This is the epilogue that nobody asked for. Yet, at the same time, it might truly be one of the most spectacular castle sets ever made. Because, get a load of this, this set has no less than 11 minifigures at its $40 price tag. And even if a lot of those minifigures don't have pants on for some reason, they're still pretty cool. There's a few familiar faces. We have this strange version of Dracus who actually for some reason has stolen Vladik's face print. Maybe there's some crazy lore we could unpack there. Vladik has possessed Dracus in one last attempt to take over Morcia. Who knows? But I think you'll see that this set does a lot of stuff like that, where they use these specialized Knights Kingdom pieces in maybe something of an attempt to get rid of them and use up extra stock, as the theme is very much on its way out the door. Another great example of that is the sticker sheet, or should I say 2 sticker sheets. Yes, this set does have 2 sticker sheets, and they're identical, and each one is the sticker sheet taken directly from Mistlin's Tower. How bizarre is that? But a great way of saving money and resources, I suppose. We do get Sir Kentis in the set. Nothing about him has changed, which is perfectly fine. And then we get the armies. We get 4 good guy warriors and 4 rogue knight warriors, each of them equipped with a chest plate, helmet, and plenty of weapons. If you thought Mistlin's Tower had a lot of weapons, you ain't seen nothing yet. And between these 2 armies, there's tons of black speckle silver armor to go around, which I really love to see. And for our 11th minifigure, we've got a good old floppy-armed skeleton. The Rogue Knights are bringing everything they've got to take down this castle. With them are 4 different siege carts. First off, you've got this nice little staircase that can easily get over the walls here, even though they are plenty tall. And you better believe there's more weapons attached to that thing with 2 axes on either side of the stairway. They've also got a catapult. You can't have a Knights Kingdom set without a catapult, chucking more flaming 2x2 trans neon orange round bricks into the castle walls. And you betcha there's more weapons with 2 spears on the front of this cart. And then you've got a battering ram to take down this beautiful set of reddish brown doors. Here you're seeing that shoulder armor piece again, the same one that was on the Rogue Knight battleship at the front. And would you look at that? 2 crossbows attached to the side of this thing too. So many weapons. And if that wasn't enough weapons for you, you haven't seen the weapons cart yet. We've got 2 broadswords, 4 spears, 2 speckled black silver axes, 2 torches, and then 2 flagged halberds, because why not? This is in addition to everything else. Everybody in the set is already kitted out with at least 1 weapon already. Very clearly, all of your minifigures could be dual wielding, no problem, no extra sets required. I love the variety of siege weaponry here, especially at a set of this size. Truly incredible. And this is one of the first times ever in Knights Kingdom that we're actually getting generic fighting knights. Yeah, we got 2 in some of the earlier sets this wave, but here you get 2 proper armies. So what are the Morcian Knights defending? This castle wall here. There's nothing too special to it. Perhaps it's just another layer in the defenses leading up to the Mistlin's Tower, or maybe this is something closer to home and a wall outside of the Castle of Morcia. No matter how you slice it, it's a respectable enough looking build, and it serves its only function very well. It's a barrier for the bad guys to overcome. One thing I really do like is the front doors here. These are some beautiful Belleville doors, because you could indeed fit Belleville characters through them because they're so large. The reddish brown version appeared once before in another set that we've revisited before, and that's the 2004 Hogwarts Clock Tower. My favorite set ever. It's awesome. But this door has had plenty of other recolors too, like transparent medium blue, transparent dark pink, and glitter transparent dark pink, as well as transparent green and transparent bright green. Absolutely ridiculous. So this is the only normal recolor that you were ever gonna get. Belleville is so cool. Even if the Rogue Knights manage to smash through these doors, though, they are not out of the woods yet. We've got these really fun spiked balls that we can drop on them. They're all nicely chained up. Knights Kingdom has been loving features like this. This reminds me a lot of the anchor that we saw in the Rogue Knight battleship that I probably forgot to point out now that I think about it, and also the dropping skeleton from Mistlin's Tower. They're a bit of a pain to reload, but it does add to the realism, because that's what the minifigures would have have to do, right? And it's always great to see that spiked ball piece again. I do really like that element. In terms of other defenses along the wall, we've got this flaming bucket of coals that we can drop on some enemies trying to breach the fortress. And that's about it. But also, this set does have a little bit of reconfigurability. The box would have you believe that it's constructed like this, but in reality, this tower is kind of just floating here on the side. It's meant to actually attach over here, and you can fold the thing up to create a bit more compact of a fortress if you desire. But there's also room to attach these wall sections on this other set of Technic pinholes to create something more like that if you want. It's not amazing, not life-changing, but I'm glad to have the options. The inside of the castle here is completely barren, no interior to be found anywhere, but there is one interesting bit. That's these torches here, which instead of flames hold light blue gemstones, and I'm not entirely sure what this means. Is it the treasure they're guarding? It hardly seems right. You'd think you'd just throw it in a treasure chest and hide it and give this castle some sort of interior. I'd love to hear your theories, and unfortunately it's just never expanded upon because there really is no lore to go off of when it comes to this set. The knights too are suspiciously green. The flags of the castle are green. At this point in LEGO's history, blue-violet was unfortunately discontinued. We actually saw it phased out halfway through 2005 because there are versions of the 2005 sets that come with blue instead of blue-violet elements. But green is a pretty big difference from the typical Morsian Knight colors. Perhaps this is Sir Kentus's personal army from his hometown. We had a bit of a taste of that in things like, strangely enough, the chess set, which kind of had Jaco's personal army. We'll never know for certain, nor does it really matter all that much, but I'm guessing that these are just one of the many factions that make up the Knights' Kingdom of the Land of Morsia. This really is such a fun set. We've got some really essential play features here, obviously, with some traps and stuff. The amount of figures, the amount of weapons and accessories, this would have been endless hours of joy for any kid to have, especially considering the very reasonable price tag for that time, though this set is difficult to find and probably was always very difficult to find. Currently, Bricklink has 4 listings, one from the Netherlands, one from Canada, one from the US, and one from Hong Kong. So absolutely all over the world, and you're looking to pay about $250 for this one. This set has no exclusive parts. The rarest thing is probably going to be the 2 sticker sheets that you'll need to decorate the walls, but getting some of those black, silver speckled elements might not be so easy either. They're very popular, understandably so, amongst castle fans. And with that, the story of Knight's Kingdom comes to an end. Though I would probably be roasted in the comments if I didn't mention the King's Castle. This is technically released under the Knight's Kingdom 2 branding, but it is very much a strange mishmash of Royal Knights and Cedric the Bull's army, and it's not abundantly clear why this set was made or who it's for, but I can tell you definitively it has nothing to do with Knight's Kingdom 2, except for the shameless use of their beautiful logo. Less than a year after these final 4 Knight's Kingdom sets released, we got Fantasy Era. And it's not hard to see the similarities between the first wave of Fantasy Era sets and what you see here. Light bluish gray castles atop dark green base plates looks kind of familiar. Though the theme will always have its detractors, and I can confidently say now that they're stupid heads because there's no way that they stuck it out all the way to the end of this video, I will always hold Knight's Kingdom 2 up as the pinnacle of what an original LEGO theme can be. It's a fantastical, sometimes ridiculous world that draws you in with its recognizable cast of characters and absurdly fun sets. The action figures and trading cards encourage you to experience the theme in new and exciting ways too. Knight's Kingdom isn't perfect, but the creative team's passion behind the project shines through with every set. Themes like Power Miners and Exoforce left me wanting more from them, but honestly, when I look back at Knight's Kingdom, it gave us everything we could ever want, and Wave 3 kind of just feels like a fun bonus. Of course I would have loved to see it go on, but I think it did all it needed to, and it did it very well. So, as we end out our coverage of Knight's Kingdom, I'd love to know, what is your favorite set from the theme? Maybe it's a basic answer, but I really adore the Castle of Morsia. And doing all 6 of these revisiting videos has given me an even greater appreciation for that set. And then there's Battle at the Pass, which isn't really a good Knights Kingdom set, but it's a spectacular castle set, if you get what I mean. Anyway, if you got trading cards, 50 King, 62 Gargoyles, 63 Rogue Knights, 67 Castle of Morcia, or 79 Shield of Ages, let me know and I will pay you for them and I'll love you forever. Have yourself a great life, and I'll see you next time when we revisit LEGO City Coast Guard? Hey!